We celebrate a talk on truth, Satya Vaarta, people's experience on Gandhiji's influence on their life. Well-known news anchor and producer from SABC, Honorable Mr. Mahendra Raghunath, would be sharing his experience on Gandhian thoughts and Gandhi's influence on his life and people around.
Your Excellency, Deputy High Commissioner of India to South Africa and Lesotho, Dr. Janaki Raman, Your Excellency, Consul General of India in Johannesburg, Dr. K.G. Srinivasa, representatives of government of South Africa and India, representatives of civil society, South Africa's freedom fighters who sit amongst us, who fought in the struggle for liberation. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost good afternoon. But good day to you. It's my great honor and privilege to stand before you and deliver this talk on truth, Satya Vaarta, on the occasion of the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. South Africans of all races and backgrounds were indeed privileged to have experienced the evolving consciousness of the man they knew as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, a young lawyer who reached his own personal turning point on a cold night at the Pietermaritzburg railway station when he was kicked out of a first-class carriage. And thus was born a freedom fighter who took on the might of the British Empire in South Africa and in India, and together with the seething masses of disenfranchised people, ultimately won independence for the motherland, India, in 1947. South Africa was a different story. A year later, South African history took a significant turn. 1948 saw the birth of Apartheid South Africa, a country that was run by Afrikaner nationalists. One of the cornerstones of apartheid was separate development. Separate development of the four major race groups became entrenched and forced by law. One of the pillars of apartheid was the Group Areas Act, which led to the forcible removal and resettlement of millions of people into townships. I grew up in an area designated for Indian people. I went to a school which was created for Indian people. I pursued my tertiary education at the University of Durban-Westville, which was created for Indian people. There was the Separate Education Act at the time. I am a fourth-generation South African of Indian descent. And, like so many of my compatriots, as well as millions of people around the world, I have found immense inspiration in the life and times of Mahatma Gandhiji. In my childhood, I was imbued with the essence of the teachings and philosophy of this great soul. This was done as I sat at the feet of my maternal grandfather, who regaled me with the true history of the disenfranchised people of South Africa, the Indians, the Africans, and the colored people. I was especially attracted to the Gandhian principles of living, and I've sought refuge in the powerful words of this towering personality that we all know and revere as Mahatma Gandhiji. Now, my first encounter with the historical figure of Mahatma Gandhiji was when I was 6 years old. Because Hindi was not taught in our schools because of the Separate Education Act and Apartheid, etc., I used to attend Hindi classes after school hours. And we took part in Eisteddfods, poetry recitals, music, dance, all sorts of cultural activities. So in my first drama performance, I was given the role of guess who? Bapuji himself. Mahatma Gandhiji. All I remember was that I was dressed in a white dhoti, which my mother, who was seated here, stitched together from a piece of white linen. And I put on these rounded spectacles, and I was given a long stick to walk with and to hold and to walk in a slightly stooped way. There was no speech for me. I was a walk-on role, just walk on as Mahatma Gandhi. But, looking back, I can say that possibly that role as Gandhiji gave me that desire to become a performer on stage, on television, on film, all of which I have fulfilled. Now, everyone has a favorite Gandhi quotation. You see them all over the internet today. What is yours? My favorite Gandhiji quotation is the following, and I've seen it in the movie, the Ben Kingsley movie. When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it. Always. The ways of truth and love. Today's talk is about truth. I'm going to talk about my truth and your truth. We're going to confront our truths. The ways of truth and love have always led to the toppling of tyrants, of illegitimate regimes, of brutal human beings. Here is the truth. I have faced brutality in so many contexts. The brutality of apartheid, the brutality that exists in households, in families, in schools, in neighborhoods, the brutality that is unleashed on the weak, the powerless, the vulnerable, the brutality that is unleashed on women and children. Truth and love are the pure forces of nature. And Gandhiji showed us in his living example that these two forces will always allow us to overcome the oppressor. Truth and love gave me and millions of South Africans the will and the means to topple the oppressive apartheid government through civil disobedience campaigns and a mass democratic movement whose people were jailed, tortured, and assassinated. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Always. This thought has always, always, always been my saving grace. There has been so much to learn from the Mahatma, the great soul who showed the world the true value of simple living and high thinking. Gandhiji said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." Somebody has done something to you. Somebody has wronged you. Somebody has hurt you. Somebody has caused you pain. Can you forgive them? Should you forgive them? Gandhiji says that it is only the strong that can forgive. It takes courage to forgive someone. But it is always the ego that comes in. It must have a say. It blocks us from forgiving others because it seems like losing an egoistic battle. Sometimes you have to take the high road with forgiveness, both for yourself and for the other person. Then there's this desire by some people to continuously play victim. We see this so much on social media. People putting up statuses like this, or like these. "I am so hurt because you have done this thing to me. You have left me for someone else. You have cheated on me, I'm crushed. I am a cracked vase with all these scars." Even that rhymed. People love to play victim. Why? Because it allows them to constantly receive sympathy from everyone they complain to. You poor little victim. And playing victim allows them to shift their focus from being successful human beings to being pathetic human beings. It allows them to never reach their full potential. It blocks them from doing and achieving their life purpose. That which we came into this world to do. Do you know what the two most powerful words are in this world? Anybody? So what? Those are the two most powerful words. So what if this terrible thing happened to you? It had only happened to you. Did it not happen to other people? For example, this driver cuts in front of you. You're driving and he almost crashes into you. You get so angry. You get into road rage. You chase after this car. You're very close behind him, bumper to bumper. You start to shout at that person aggressively. You use swear words. You use rude gestures. Some people take out their gun and shoot them. In the broader global stage, people fire missiles at each other. Why? Do you actually own the road? Were you sent by some higher entity to teach that driver a lesson? Or is it just your ego that makes you act like this? Why don't you just shrug your shoulders and say, so what?